Introducing myself, my name's Paul Myers. I've been in the Czech Republic for 17 years now. I'm still not fluent in Czech. I apologise to everyone for that. My background is basically over 25 years in recruiting. I've recruited for a number of different companies at startup, small to medium business level and enterprise level. And more recently, I've been working for a company called Quadient. It's a leading player in the field of customer communications management and customer experience management, providing SaaS solutions to its clients. And I've been responsible for hiring mainly go-to-market and partner sales manager roles across Europe, Asia Pacific and Latin America. After 25 years in the recruitment industry, I have to tell you I'm a little bit tired. I have decided to start my own business, and it was born out of the frustration of thinking, what can we do differently? How can we have more success in hiring? What sort of solutions exist in the marketplace to actually give us greater success? And from that, I've built PeopleLensAI. But this is not to sell PeopleLensAI to you now. We can talk about that afterwards. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how you can make the most out of hiring for your business. So, we'll start with, most expensive growth decision you make isn't strategy, it's hiring. One bad hire. Do you know how much it costs? Varies from company to company. You can't actually put a figure on it, but lots of people think about 6,000 euros as a basic cost if you make a bad hire. So, when you make one wrong go-to-market hire, there's compounding revenue drag. It's not an HR cost, it's a business cost, okay? Of course, there's the salary and commission. 6 to 9 month ramp to be effective in their role. And if they're not effective in their role, you've paid 6 to 9 months salary and you haven't generated any new business or new partnerships. That's quite a big impact. Execution distortion. A bad hire doesn't just not produce revenues. Think about your quarterly business reviews, your pipeline reviews with the CEO of a company. They're all messed up for at least 2 quarters. Bad downstream hires. You've made one bad hire, you're now going to replace it with another bad hire just because you want to fill a gap. And the cycle repeats. Founder time drain. The founder of the company starts having to get involved in sales. They've got other things they need to be thinking about. Strategy, the vision of the company. But they're focusing on closing deals, winning new partnerships, making sure those partners actually perform for the business. And then partner trust erosion. Let's say you've got Accenture as a partner. Great partner to have. But you've given them 3 or 4 different sales partner managers over the last 12 months. How do you think they feel about working with your organization? Are they going to put as much effort into it? I'm not so sure. So when we're hiring, everyone says we can't find any talent. There's no talent out there. That's simply not true. We don't have a talent shortage, we have a signal problem. We're listening to the wrong signals in interviews. We say we hire for potential, and we value performance. We care about impact. Of course you do, you want to generate more revenues. You want your partners to work for you and generate more revenues. But what we actually hire for, or what we seek out for in interview, is someone's pedigree. Who have they worked for? What companies are they associated with? They've worked for Google, they must be great. Confidence. If someone's confident in an interview versus someone who's a little bit nervous, maybe stutters from time to time and can't express themselves effectively, we automatically go more or lean more towards the person that comes across as being more confident. Charisma. I'm not going to say I have a lot of charisma, but someone who makes you feel good, someone you can relate to, someone you interact with in the interview very, very well. Okay? They're all weak signals. They don't tell you anything about performance. Brand logos, as I mentioned. Google, Facebook, Meta. All big companies. But if you're scaling and in growth stage, someone who's worked for a huge enterprise corporation with everything all in place, processes, procedures, materials, marketing, gumph, are they going to fit into your organization? Can they adapt to your way of working? Interview to a forecasting model. Forecasting for future performance. In a hiring model, however, we go by vibes. That person made me feel great about them in the interview. I've got a good feeling about them. Gut feel. I just think they could really be good and do the job really, really well. And storytelling. They can take you around the houses and tell you how wonderful they performed. But did they give you any context? 2 million in revenues in 1 year. Sounds great. What's the context behind it? Did you understand that actually the leads that they closed all came from the founder of the previous company, so they never had to do any business development? They didn't have to chase the partners because the co-founder managed the partners as well. They actually inherited a pipeline when they started. Are they going to be inheriting a pipeline in your organization, or are they going to be building a pipeline? So we need to look for data, facts. Not just I closed 2 million euros of business. How did I close 2 million euros of business? Assumptions and evidence. Get the real data behind what they're telling you. If you were going to a business review, you had to report on your pipeline, would you go on vibes? Would you be happy telling the investors that, you know, there's good vibes, got a good feeling about this, we're going to hit target? Or will you go with data and assumptions and evidence? Adopt the same process to interviewing. Weak signals feel good. Strong signals feel uncomfortable. Weak signals we've mentioned. Elite companies. The brands. Big revenue claims. A strong presence. They're commanding in the interview. And they sound strategic. These are easily acceptable. They're music to our ears when we hear these sort of things in the interview. Okay? But the strong signals, they're not so comfortable. Because as an interviewer, we have to dig a little bit deeper. That means we need to ask more questions. And if we don't feel we're getting the right information, we need to dig deeper again. And it can be uncomfortable. We're looking for specific decisions. When it comes to partners, which partners were they working with? Why did they choose to work with those partners? What made them think that partner was a good partner to work with? Trade-offs. Partners always want something back. Always. What were they willing to trade? Did they make a decision to straight away drop some prices and make it fairly easy for a partner? Or did they push back? Make concessions elsewhere? Failure patterns. When things go wrong, going to market, talking to partners. Partners not performing. Did they recognise why those partners weren't performing? And if they did, what did they do about it? And constraint navigation. Maybe they were working for a bootstrapped company like mine, but they have no budget. How did they circumnavigate that world of getting messages out there? Being able to make sure that the partner organisations would work with them. Even salespeople, direct sales, go-to-market sales. They're always complaining that marketing don't do enough for them. I always say try and work without marketing, because they kind of go hand in hand. So the strong signals will give you much more information about how someone thinks and acts in their role. It's a better predictor of their future performance, but it takes more work in the interview. So if we've made some hiring decisions, or we've made the wrong hiring decisions, revenue teams fail in fairly predictable ways. Growth. Sorry for any growth marketeers in here. But quite often the focus is on just getting a message out there and spamming as many companies as possible to get your brand known. What about quality? So we spammed 2,000 companies on LinkedIn and we got a click rate of 0.01%. Was it effective? Okay, we did something slightly more targeted. We went out to 100 personas that we created and we got a click-through rate of 10%. Much more effective. Sales, activity over effectiveness. Salespeople like to talk and talk and talk and talk. They don't like cold calling that much, but they have to do it. But not all salespeople like to ask for the business. So they just make lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of calls, hoping that someone's going to say yes. Have we found the right person that's actually going to research their market, research their customers, understand their business, understand their competition, understand the financials even of the companies that they're targeting, their growth plans and where they're going, and have the right conversations with those organizations to actually get some deals. Partnerships, partner sales managers. Some of my favorite interviews. Yeah, I worked with Accenture and Cognizant, and I managed the relationships with those partners. Great, how did you do it? Well, marketing gave me lots of material for it. Great. Who were your contacts? Heads of partnerships. Okay. Why were they partnering with you? Oh, because we've got a great solution. Fantastic. What revenues did you make from those partners? Oh, well, it was quite difficult. And for 6 to 9 months, we didn't really make a lot of revenues. Why not? Well, because it was a bit backwards and forwards, and we announced the partnership 12 months ago, so it takes time to build up. Announcements of partnerships are great. It's the revenues that matter. Revenues from partnerships. So when you're making bad hires, this is an example of how things can go wrong. Strong signal interviewing. Most interviewers I've met love to ask about, tell me about your biggest deal. Overly focused on the success. They don't want to question, what assumptions did you make that didn't quite work out? What nearly killed the deal? Sorry, I'm standing in people's way. What changed mid-cycle? I know from selling to enterprise level companies that things change on a regular basis the higher up the enterprise you go and the more international a deal gets. What changed mid-deal? How did they adapt? How did they change their approach? What would they have done differently? Now, these sound like fairly standard questions, but it's amazing how often these questions aren't actually asked in interviews. Because again, we're focused on those weak signals. The person sounds great, they've worked for big brands, and they've just told me they closed a €2 million deal. They must be fantastic. $10 million sounds like a lot of money for me. I'd love $10 million. But a $10 million pipeline means nothing, which is why I cost it out. It means nothing if it can't be closed. And if you're not hiring the right salespeople or the right partner sales managers, what percentage of the pipeline is self-generated? If you have 5 partner sales managers, and each of them tells you about 5% of the pipeline is mine, where's the rest of the pipeline come from? Founder influence, or VP of sales if you're a mid-sized business. How often does the founder need to be involved in the sales cycle? Are the partner sales managers or sales managers able to manage the sales cycle themselves, or do they need the help of the founder? Did the founder actually get most of this pipeline through his or her networking and then pass it on to the salespeople? Conversion rates. Oops. Conversion rates. Pipeline of opportunity. How many of those deals have closed? How many are your salespeople predicting will close before the next quarterly business review? And repeatability. Are your partner sales managers and sales managers closing sales deals that actually lead to repeat business, annual recurring revenues, or are they just trying to hit their targets and close any deal that comes along? If founder or VP of sales or CEO or whoever at the top level needs to constantly be involved in your partner relationship management and your sales management, your company cannot scale. Because there's only one person performing. So partnerships, leverage your liability. Are we hiring salespeople who look at partnerships as a growth multiplier? Or are they looking at partnerships as a distraction engine? Have the people we've hired shown in interview that they are actually able to get action out of the partners? Have they proven it to you that they're going to perform? Or are they going to just simply say, yes, we're working with these partners, but never actually close a deal with them? So other questions at interview stage for these people. What did you say no to? Partner organisations can make some quite tough demands sometimes. Sometimes you need to say, no, that doesn't work for us, and explain why. Ask them, what did they say no to? Ask them how they structured incentives for their partners. Partners love an incentive. We all love an incentive. First rule of sales, think about your audience and ask yourselves, as an audience, what's in it for me? Because that's what your partners are thinking. What's in it for me? What failed? Did they take it too far? Were they too tough on a partner? Why? What happened? And what unintended consequences emerged? Good or bad? Some of their actions could have led to a surprise reaction from a client that suddenly pumped a lot of extra revenues in through partnership work. On the other side, it could have completely destroyed a relationship with a partner. Understand why and what happened. Partnerships are crucial to your growth. You need to ask the right questions to help us make better hiring decisions. We have what we call the scale inflection trap. So as a startup or a small business, in the early days, the hustle works. It's the activity. It's getting marketing materials out there. It's getting on the phone. It's cold calling. It's getting hold of everybody. Getting your name out there. When you're trying to scale, you need process and systems. Just hustle on its own won't work. And hustle without process and systems becomes messy. The strategy can't be completed, and you can't take the next step and get to the next level without process and systems in place. So when you're hiring, you need to ask yourselves, is the person I'm hiring really going to help us get to the next stage? So, I've got a challenge for you. Your most expensive mishire. Hands up anyone who's kind of made a dodgy hire in the past. I'll put my hand up. I have. Okay. So, you decided to hire them. What signals told you it was a good hire at the time? What signal did you miss, perhaps? Question, when did you know it was a bad hire? Immediately? 3 months later? 6 months later? Perhaps you might be thinking, what would a better interview have uncovered that could have helped you or stopped you from making a hiring mistake? And it's not you that's made a mistake personally, even if you made a bad hire. I can say that because I don't want to admit I've made a mistake. But it's the process that you went through in the interview that allowed the mistake to happen. So I don't know how many of you here are founders, but we can say a founder's advantage, a CEO's advantage, a VP of sales advantage, an HR director or manager's advantage. You've all got intuition. Everyone has intuition. But the people who interview best don't just use their intuition. They use a process and a structure in their interviews as well. So when you get a signal from your candidates, ask yourselves, is it directly tied to success in this revenue motion that I'm asking about? Someone might be coming across really confident, but that signal of confidence doesn't necessarily tie to the success. There's something else behind it. Is it observable? Can they show you? Have they actually showed you? Did they give you evidence? Did they back up what they were saying? Would we value it if it changed, if the delivery style changed? Is this person coming in who I think could potentially take us to the next level going to cause us to think about the way we do things and perhaps make a change to our processes and enhance things for us? How will that be received? Does that add value to us? Perhaps versus, okay, so I know Joe. Joe's worked for my direct competitor. I know their processes. It's the same as us. So we bring them in and just do the same thing we've always ever done. And does it scale beyond founder oversight? Will this person perform? Will they perform well? And will the founder, VP sales, CEO be able to focus on strategy, growing the business, the vision that they had? So, better interview quality ultimately leads to better execution from the individual that you've decided to hire, because there's more alignment around the role that you've hired them for. And you've read the right signals. They appear to be a good fit. You appear to be a good fit for them as well. It's a two-way thing. But better execution, quality in their role means better revenue quality for your organization. Signal quality, if you're reading the signals the right way, it provides you with greater hiring accuracy, less mistakes made in hiring, more right hires at the right time, the first time. Execution consistency, better performers perform better over a longer period of time, which then means revenue predictability increases, because it's not just the salespeople who are looking to bust their targets and they don't care about anything else, but it's people who are truly passionate about the growth of your company and are focused on that important annual recurring revenue structure. If I audited your last 10 hires, could I predict performance from your interview notes? What's in your interview notes? Came across really well. I like them. They like football too. Or an interview note that says, Joe managed to close 10 million euros in pipeline revenue over the last 12 months, of which 7 million was annual recurring revenue. This was done through Better signals also build better companies. Better hiring decisions lead to better teams. Teams that are aligned in terms of focus, activities, culture, values. Better teams stay together longer, which means there's durable growth for your organization. Signal discipline in interviews. You should consider it as a growth strategy. So, brings me to the end. Better hiring does start with having better conversations. That's what I've built my new company on. Helping people like you have better conversations with the people you're looking to hire for your business. Questions? Or did I bore you all to death? Yes?
At the beginning you said you're a bit tired, maybe a bit frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what makes you frustrated. Is the state of the union or is it maybe something else?
Good question. So 25 years doing recruitment, providing what I consider to be talented individuals to hiring managers who then turn around and say, oh, but it doesn't say this on their CV. But you haven't even spoken to the guy. And I've got all this feedback. I'm very structured in how I give my feedback. Goes back to one of the earlier slides. We say we're hiring for talent. But ultimately, I want someone just like me. So the frustration of seeing talent wasted in the marketplace, not being given opportunities. Also frustration of seeing high levels of attrition in sales functions because you've given a selection of candidates. There's clearly two that are strong, one or two that aren't so strong, and for some reason, hiring manager completely surprises you and chooses the person that you wouldn't have chosen yourself. And it's not a kind of, I told you so, but it gets frustrating to see that high level of attrition in sales. So a combination, tiredness of fighting with hiring managers over why they should see somebody that I've interviewed, and then the rate of attrition in those organizations.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I really enjoyed it. Can you hear me okay?
I can, I'm just getting out of the light.
Okay. I used to be on the search side myself with
Mhm.
Lens and the people function, so I appreciate your frustration. Okay, hi. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys heard me, but I used to be in the people function as well and on the recruitment side, so I appreciate all your frustrations. I guess I was just wondering what the difference is from, let's say, competency-based interviewing. In my experience, one of the problems we've run into, whether on the people side or on the manager side, is that most people will say, yeah, competency-based interviewing, but very few people actually know how to do it well. Very few people are trained how to do it well. And even when you have software like Greenhouse and you put in some prompts like, we want this from this role and here's some questions you can ask, it's different, having something on the screen in front of you and then actually having a live conversation with your candidates and being able to incorporate those kind of questions in there. So I guess I'm just wondering, when you say better conversations, is that just a variation on better way to do competency-based interviewing, or is it something else?
It's something else. I've done the competency-based interviews, I've done skills-based interviews, I've done personality fit, culture-based interviews, and from my perspective, the best interview is to combine all of them into one interview. However, you're right, not a lot of hiring managers have a lot of training in actually being able to manage that. Trying not to sell my solution, but there are ways of being able to help managers come across as engaging, personable, focus on the individual, focus on fit from both sides, while supporting them with the competency-based questions, and it can be done all on screen during live interview with live interview prompts as well.
I want to see it.
We can have a look later.
Yeah, so this is one of a philosophical question. Imagine two scenarios. There's one person ticks all the right boxes. He covers 100% of what you wanted. Excellent references, measurable references, everything, but you can get on with them on a personal level. Then there's another person that ticks only 70% of the boxes. Definitely not that type of candidate as the person A, but you get on with them very well. You are able to communicate with them very well. They align with the way you work and the way you think. If you hire the person too, are you making a mistake?
Good question. I think you need to take a more rounded look at the team and how that person's going to fit with the whole team rather than how the person fits just with you. And they may be able to bring something of huge value to your team and your organisation. So I don't think there's necessarily it's wrong to choose person 2 or person 1. I think it's about what fits best with the team and how the fit will work and fit best with that individual. However, what I would say, if someone's 70%, a third off the mark of what you're looking for, I probably wouldn't make that hiring decision.
There's one person here.
Actually, I had two. First one, on technology. The last few years in recruitment, selection, do you feel a difference? Do you see a massive difference in the way management and hiring managing is taking place? And I'll start with that one.
Okay, let's start with that one. Over the last few years, hiring managers haven't been impacted as much as I would have thought they would with regards to, for example, AI in recruitment. The real impact is at the recruiter level. There's been so much focus on automation and productivity. There's lots of tools now for AI sourcing of candidates. They're still not 100% right. They're not great. And a lot of them just fire more CVs more quickly. Doesn't necessarily mean the roles get filled any quicker. It means the recruiters have got lots more CVs to sift through. So hiring managers can get a bit frustrated that actually it's taking more time. On the other side, there are tools that do that element very well. And I think at a lower level, high volume type hiring scenario, the automated sourcing is very good for that. There are lots of productivity tools now, automation of workflows, automated calendar scheduling, automated interviewing, etc. Automated interviews, AI bot interviews as opposed to in-person interviews, again, is much more for a screening stage rather than a decision-making stage in the hiring process. Next question.
A little bit about GTM and attrition, because you talked a lot about impact performance, but when it comes to hiring people that are going to stay longer than the 2.5 average you have in SaaS, let's say.
Yeah. Sorry, what was
Is there anything you can see in those signals or interviews, performance aside, that might think that those people stay longer? Or?
Performance aside, you should be able to see from their history how long they've stayed in positions, and their performance will usually relate to how long they do stay in positions. So if someone's highly performing, they tend to be quite well looked after by the organisation that they're in, and they tend to stay with that organisation a lot longer. If somebody's not performing so well, they're just about hitting their targets or not quite reaching their targets, that's when they're more inclined to move around and look for the next opportunity.
One more question here.
Hi. Thank you. How many rounds do you necessarily need to make a good assessment, or what's the minimum?
Minimum can be 1. Depends on role, depends on complexity, depends on who's in the interview, whether it's a panel, whether it's one person. There's multiple ways of interviewing candidates. Ultimately, you need to find the right fit for your organisation.
Any more questions? If not, I have one. That actually, I'm very picky with CVs. I don't like CVs that are not meant for the recruiter to understand. When, for example, I'm reading and I don't fully understand what the person is doing, or what's their, I don't know, their career, or even they're trying to hide some information here and there. And for me, normally, if there's even misalignments, typos, or so, it's like red flags. Like I can see lots of red flags in CVs. So for me, that's normally a sign of I cannot trust this person with certain things. But a good CV, a really, really good CV, well presented, so it's not necessarily an indicator of good performance.
Mhm.
So do you see any correlations there that you can make us aware of?
None whatsoever. I've seen CVs with gaps 3 to 6 months, look a bit odd. Sometimes one of their previous employments they're still employed in, but they've had 3 or 4 employments since. And I would say everything is worth an investigation. Just pop out a mail and say, look, I've got your application, but I'm just a bit confused about a couple of things. Can you just clarify this for me? But when it comes to performance, generally on a CV, high performers, particularly in sales and partner sales, they will focus on numbers, revenues, percentages, conversion rates. So that will tell you a lot about the performance of that individual. But if we're talking an accountant, it's very difficult.
No design skills.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually have one more question, but more to the audience. I'm just like out of curiosity, how many people or like people representing the companies hiring right now? Okay.
And how many are looking for jobs, potentially?
Always.
Maybe they took this as an opportunity
Always
to
matter.
learn what recruiters are looking for.
Okay, so anyone got any more questions? No, I think no. Okay, so thanks a lot, Paul. It was really great.
Thank you.